getting messages. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm Laura, which is older sister. We have two sisters. I'm the older one. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. And this is going to be a celebration of my brother's life. He had an extraordinary life, and this is a celebration of an extraordinary life. We have a few speakers. This is going to be very informal as far as how we roll along here. I have some things in place, but I really want it to be casual and informal because a lot of people have a lot of memories of him. And I want everyone who wants to share. And so be mindful that if you want to, you can come up and share whatever you want to share. First, we're going to start off with a blessing from our cousin, Father Michael. He's a blessing. And we'll have him start that, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It is good for us to be here. Maybe it's not going to be church, but at least we can ask God's grace and blessing on us in our time together. I'm a cousin of Gueri. I wasn't raised with him, but we certainly got to see each other from time to time, and I followed a little bit of his career, and I'm really looking forward to hearing not only the stories, but his history of what he accomplished. But let's start with a moment of prayer together. Good and gracious God, be with us today as we honor the memory of your servant, Luciano Guerriero. We are grateful for the hospitality and welcome provided for us by the SUNY campus. Bless those who are looking after us today. It was at this campus that Gueri studied and earned his Bachelor of Fine Arts in Acting degree in 1981. Though our hearts are heavy and sad, we wish to recall and celebrate some of Gueri's achievements. We remember his gracious smile, kindness, friendliness, talent, and sense of humor. We admire his courage in volunteering to serve at Ground Zero for 8 months in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks. We treasure the happy memories we each share today. Heavenly Father, please hear our humble prayer. We commend him to your loving embrace, him with the joy of eternal life, with all the angels in the kingdom of heaven. Amid the tears and laughter of this memorial service, we pray your comfort and consolation upon Mary, Laura, Marianne, Margaret, and all the family members who have a deep love for Gueri. We pray that you would strengthen each of us in our journey of life, so that as we face trials and setbacks, we would place our trust in you. Your word teaches us that you are our shepherd, and we are your flock. Watch over and guide us safely to our heavenly home. And all God's people said, Amen. God bless you.
Okay, I have to ask that you bear with me because I'm kind of nervous. It's not my typical thing to do. First, I would like to start off by sharing some of the remarks that were made on Facebook after he passed away and how people felt about him. I printed them out. There's 3 pages, 2 pages, because it really captures what he meant to so many different people. He was a giant of a man, loving, brave, intelligent, and insightful. I always look forward to his posts. He was a real human being, God bless. I still find it hard to believe that he's gone. Luciano was an amazing, kind, and caring human. I'll miss his fearless convictions, his steadfast integrity, and his witty stories about his fascinating past. He didn't suffer fools lightly, and yet he still accepted me as a friend. Rest in power, my friend. A brilliant and loving light was extinguished too soon. He shined with noticeable warmth, light, and intelligence. His courage and convictions were inspiration to me. A friend to so many people, lots of stories and funny jokes, a big loss for us all, and especially his family. I adored him, smart and fearless. Luch was a lovely guy, so bright, funny, and kind. It was a pleasure and an honor to be his friend. So very sad to hear about the passing of this loving, intelligent soul. I miss dearly, Luch. It's still hard to hear. Thank you for always being there for me and for your guidance and wisdom throughout the years. I so loved Luch and was honored to be his friend. Gentle giant, fierce protector. Your brother was a light. Luciano was always incredibly decent, had some good chats. He will be missed. Luciano, though just a Facebook friend, is dearly missed. When I scroll through the memories, his shared posts appear not frequently, and they are all keepers. What a blessing he was. He has such an amazing spirit filled with life and goodness. He changed my life by just being himself, down to earth, honest, truthful, genuine. With his insight and view of so many things, he was compassionate and curious and silly. We both loved Far by Gary Larson. I felt I knew him in real life. I enjoyed his stories, past and present. I am very saddened, as many are, and will always cherish his memory. I only knew your brother through Facebook, but I counted him as a cherished friend. We lost a warm, wonderful friend. Heaven has a new angel. So many wonderful memories of stories modeling how to be interesting, angry, and kind all at the same time. I feel my own IQ dropping now just for lack of access to insights from Luciano, whom I in life. A star has been extinguished, a light has gone out for the world. Love to his family, that meant so very much to him. What a lovely man. He was quite the man. Luch was such a special and inspiring colleague and friend. Luciano was a man of loving truth. I miss him every day. We would chat for hours while I walked with my dog. We didn't solve any problems, but we didn't create any either. One of my fondest memories of Luciano is of him helping me pull an all-nighter to finish a term paper at SUNY Purchase. He was thoughtful, emotionally intelligent, wise beyond his years, empathetic. I know you didn't go without a fight. I never met Luciano except here. He was wonderful to me and I cherished him. Now he's gone, but never forgotten. One of the good ones, one of our best men, a man who risked both his health and his very life to help others escape the Twin Towers before they fell. Gary was a great friend and mentor to me. He was a true hero, a very brave and honorable man. I remember Gary from high school. We played ball together. He was a kind soul that was a great asset to our football team. He always was a great guy back when. We spoke here on Facebook during COVID about acting, growing up in Harrison, the church fire. He turned me on to Professor Wolf. So sad to hear of his passing. A great guy going too soon. What a great person. The first thing I want to address is his names. Depending on, his legal name was Luciano Guerriero. And depending on when you knew him, you called him by a different name. Up until he graduated high school, he was known as Gueri to the family, He didn't use the name Luciano. And since a lot of people couldn't pronounce Gueri, they called him Gary. So you either knew him as Gueri or Gary until he graduated high school. And then when he graduated, he went to the University of Rochester, off to another world, and decided he wanted to use the name Luciano. And so if you know him after high school, you know him as Luciano, Luch, Lucci, whatever. Any variation of that name. So family members will call him Gueri or Gary. Some family members do call him Gary. And then you'll hear Luch and Luciano. Okay. I have some memories I would like to share and describe the kind of brother he was to me. We were only 4 years apart in age. He was a very typical big brother to a little sister. He was my brother, my hero, my friend, and also my protector. And my major tormentor. It was his job to get under my skin every chance he got, and he laughed and laughed about it. He and I were extremely different personalities, very different. As you can tell, he was very outgoing. I was extremely shy and thin-skinned, and he took advantage of that. But I always knew he loved me. It's just two different personalities. An example is, my mother tells the story of when he was little, he whitewashed the brick wall of my grandfather, who was a bricklayer, when she wasn't looking. With me, she was playing with me on the floor and fell asleep, and when she woke up, I was in the same spot. I didn't move. So we were completely different personalities. She calls me her third light. He was always taken off, going on adventures his whole life. We had a wonderful childhood in Silver Lake, right down the road. He played in the park. We all did, played in the park. We had summer camp there, and there was baseball. He played baseball. He learned how to fish there, and we got lifelong love of fishing. He was mischievous. There's one memory that I have when we were young, before my sister was born. We shared a bedroom in an apartment in a house on Lincoln Avenue. And at one point, I guess my parents decided they wanted to put a wall between our beds. And so they had my Uncle Johnny, who was a carpenter, build a wall. And on the top of the wall, it just went the length of the beds. On the top, there was a shelf opening. And one night, we were supposed to be going to sleep, and it was dark, and very shy, scared of my shadow. I hear, and something hit me. Something hit me. Spitballs. He was bombing me with spitballs in the dark. And then, he used to get me on April Fools all the time. I wasn't good at that. I could not do that. He would get me all the time. And one day, on April Fools, I got him good. And we remembered that every year on April Fools ever since. He was outside the house playing baseball with the guys in the street. And I yelled out, "Gary, time for dinner." Everybody broke up, went home. He came up the stairs. I said, "April Fools," and I had to run. He did not like that one bit. There is one incident that's pretty serious. Westchester Airport is right here, and when we were growing up, a lot of families on the weekends would take their kids to go see the planes take off and land. I don't know why, but it was exciting to little kids. And so when my mother had to stay home, she was very pregnant with my sister. So my father took Gueri and I up there, and it was dusk. And Gueri decided he's gonna like climb the fence or something. He had his hand and foot on the chain link fence, and the other hand and foot on the light pole, and his foot was on the box that's on the light pole. They turned the lights on, and the light was not grounded, and he got electrocuted, and he was there screaming. My father kicked him from behind, and he went flying. Many years later, he decided to share that he had a near-death experience that time. And he obviously believes in heaven, so he's looking down on us now. He's still messing with me, by the way. He's still doing it every day. So he did, have that experience, but he was very private. He didn't talk about a lot of things to a lot of people. He was always interested in acting. He started acting in grammar school at St. Anthony's in Silver Lake, and never lost that love of acting. He went to University of Rochester studying pre-med and then English, and decided that it wasn't for him, and he wanted to act, so he came to SUNY Purchase for another 4 years of school. One thing from our past. He used to tell me all the time I had a big nose. Always tell me I had a big nose. And so I wasn't vain enough to get a nose job, but I used to hope that I would have a deviated septum, I have a good reason to go in there. And one day I found out I had deviated septum. And I said to the surgeon, can you scale it down just a little bit? Because of him, I got a nose job. There was one night, because we had we clashed a lot, brother and sister. There was one night that I remember very vividly where our relationship changed completely. And he was attending SUNY. Of course, he had spent 4 years before, that Rochester, before he came to SUNY. So I was your guys' age. And he was a little older. And one night we were having an argument. We argued a lot. We had an argument, and I finally said to him, you know what? You don't treat me like you treat your friends. We're the same age. And he thought, oh, that's true. And since then, we became best friends. And basically, I was the same age as all of his friends here, dear friends. And he realized that, yeah, it's time to treat me as a grown-up. I miss his giggle and his laugh. When he laughed hard enough, he drooled. Even as an adult, loved it. One of the memories that I have from SUNY Purchase is when he met James Earl Jones. Everybody knows the story. James Earl Jones asked when he was going to do his Othello, and my brother fell speechless for the first and only time in his life. And he loved to tell that story, and he always shared that I witnessed it. Yes, I did. He was a very, very private person, so not a lot of people knew what his life was like in the past 6 to 10 years. He was always curious, always. He had a thirst for knowledge, I think, from when he was born. And that's why he went on so many adventures, mischievous adventures, just trying to get experiences. And I miss being able to text him and say, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And what's your opinion on this? This is what I see. What do you see? Because I knew he would, if he didn't know, if he didn't have the answer, he would find it and let me know, because he had a tremendous thirst for knowledge. And he also had a tremendous thirst for friendships. He was a collector of friends. That was his collection. His friends on Facebook are over 1,300. I had 350. He just enjoyed conversing with people. He loved people. And I know that each and every one of you, and even everyone who's watching a live stream, you have a piece of him in your heart, and he spread himself amongst many, many people. And I feel like he has brought us all together to celebrate the friendship that we all had with him. And as a sister, I did have a friendship with him. He was my brother, my hero, my friend, and always will be. This is very difficult for our family, but we're going to celebrate what he was and who he was. Oh, that sense of humor, oh my gosh, he laughed. He loved to do things that made him laugh. One of his very good friends from Rochester, I mean, he has friends from his high school English teacher, considered him like a son. And he came to the funeral yesterday. I mean, that's a long friendship, and they were tight. They were very tight. My brother loved to collect people and friendships and hearts. One person that he treasured from the Rochester days couldn't be here, but he is such a fantastic writer, and he wrote some beautiful things about my brother and caught his essence. And one thing he did was he shared a poem, Death is Nothing at All by Henry Scott Holland, a canon of St. Paul's Cathedral. And it was originally part of a sermon delivered in 1910. And I thought it was so appropriate for my brother and today. The most remembered passage is this: Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I'm out of sight? I am but waiting for you for an interval. Somewhere very near, just around the corner, all is well. I thought that captured my brother very well. And I would like to end with a little story. Our father passed away on Christmas Eve, 1990, and it happened to be my birthday. And I was devastated. I thought my birthday was ruined forever. It took me a long time to get over that. And I was struggling one day, and I talked to my brother on the phone, and he said, you know, I prefer to picture him gazing into the eyes of Jesus. And when I got the call that he had passed, the first thought I had was he's not in pain anymore, because he suffered greatly and fought so hard. I don't know why he did fight for so long, but he did. And the second thought I had was, he's gazing into the eyes of Jesus. And that gave me comfort. And I could see him and my father side by side, gazing into the eyes of Jesus. And there are many loved ones up there in heaven for him to party with and have fun with. And I still feel his presence, because I'm telling you, he's messing with me with the electronics. An example is in the hotel. We were on the first floor, we wanted to go to the third, or vice versa. I hit the one, and the 1 and 2 came on, so we had to make an extra stop. Little things like that let me know he's there and he's near. And I picture his face smiling. And for a long time since he passed, I had memories only really of him sick, because he was sick for so long. And he suffered for so long. But through all of you sharing memories and pictures and sharing your stories about him, I came back to who he was before he got sick. And that's who my brother is and always will be. The illness was just a small part of his life, very short. But he was brave enough to serve his community and paid with his life. And for that, I am so honored to call him my brother. I can't believe I get to call him my brother. He was extraordinary, and we're here to celebrate an extraordinary life. Thank you. I do want to acknowledge, I forgot to do that earlier, we are live streaming, and I want to say hi to everyone who is joining us on live stream. And Mom couldn't be here. She's physically not able to make it here. But she wanted me to say something on her behalf, and I know she wants to thank you with all of her heart for being here and being so kind to him and such good friends and loving him so much. And she will forever be grateful for each and every one of you who carry a piece of him with you. And the best way to honor him, I think, is to go out and share that piece of him with other people. And that will continue his legacy and his life in the best way. So thank you. And now we will hear from my sister, Marianne. And she can, I can't even look at that screen because I'll lose it altogether. When you do, if you do come up to speak and you come up the stairs, be careful of the wires. There are wires across the bottom of the stairs. Okay, this is Marianne.
Okay. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but while Laura was speaking, that light kept flickering. He's here with us.
He's messing with you.
Yeah, I just want to start by thanking everybody for coming, because we would just be here by ourselves, and that would be kind of boring. And thank you a lot for being his friend and good to him. He loved everybody. He really did. Just like my sister said, he did collect people. But my experience with my brother is a lot different, obviously. I'm a different person, different personality from them. And I was 8.5 years younger than he was, and 8.5 years younger than my sister. So I was born in '67, which makes me an early Gen Xer to their boomers. And my growing up experience didn't really include my brother under the same roof. For the first 5 years I had him, and so when I went to kindergarten, he was just going to college. But for those first 5 years, he wanted to teach me all there was. I have fond memories of sitting on the floor in the kitchen at the refrigerator, and he used to teach me my alphabet and my numbers with magnetic letters. And he taught me how to count to 10 in French. He taught me how to read Shakespeare at age 5, and how to play Romeo and Juliet on the piano. I mean, not many of my friends were experiencing that at home, but I was lucky enough to have a professor. So, the professor of Marianne. So, he really loved children. And it was evidenced by a period in his life before he was immobile, where he was carving out time out of his schedule to visit, I think it was Beth Israel Hospital. And he would nurture and cuddle babies born addicted or sick, you know. And how many years did he do that? It was a while. Yeah. He just loved children. And I think there was a large part of him that remained a child. He had a big child, inner child. So he could get down on their level and relate to them and play with them and just with glee. Just, that was him. So I was lucky enough to have that type of nurturing. Although we did have our difficulties due to that age difference, because he was my sibling and not my father. He was very responsible, and also my parents were running some businesses at that time, and they didn't have a lot of time. I was a latchkey kid. So whenever he was around, maybe during summer break or whatever, he was asked to help out with me. So that built a lot of tension between us. You're not my father and all that. But we got through it. One thing that I valued most about my relationship with my brother was the fact that I could be totally and absolutely myself at all times. Good, bad, ugly, all of it. I could speak my mind to him without fear that it would cause a rift. And I know, having talked to other people, that he could build rifts just as he could bridges. And there were times where we would go months without speaking. But we always managed to have that 3-hour conversation and untie all the knots and get back to understanding and end our phone call with "I love you." It always ended with "I love you, I love you too." But it was that rare relationship in my life that I felt like I could be totally myself and not hold back. And he had that same freedom. He could tell me when I was being a jerk, you know, and, you know, I would take it to heart because he was a smart man and he knew me better than anybody else. So I had that, I had that feeling that he always had my back, no matter what. I always could talk to him. I could always call him. I have some memories here of the cool things he did for me. And his friend Josh, who he knew from the Ritz, is here. I remember I was, I think, 16 years old, 15, 16. I was really into the B-52s. And they were playing at the Ritz. And for my birthday, he took me to work with him. And for my safety, had me sit in the tech booth. And, you know, the guys were fine with that because I didn't get in the way or anything, but I was watching the sound technician behind the console and the show at the same time. And actually before the show, I got to watch them and do their thing. So I got to see how the sausage was made. And, you know, I had always been interested in audio and music, things like, and performing arts and all that. So through him, I got to see exactly what goes into productions. So I felt privileged for that. And like when he was in Rude Awakening with Cheech Marin and Eric Roberts, I got to watch it in the Village with him at the theater. And I can remember looking up at the screen and then looking at him and then looking up at the screen. That happened to be that's the Rent song. He improvised that based off the 59th Street Bridge song, Feeling Groovy. Hey, hey, today's the day. So yeah, he had his moment with Brad Pitt. I was at once starstruck and jaded. Like, if you can imagine that, it's like, I could be either at either time, having seen the sausage being made, but also being a big fan of, you know, the arts, you know, movies, music, all of that. So I had the best of both, you know? Keith Barber had a play, and it was called, Strays? Okay, yeah, Keith and JD put on a play that he directed. And it was just amazing to watch him in action and doing what he loved best. And there were so many times that I got to witness it. And honestly, it was not lost on me that how privileged I was to be there behind the scenes and see everything happening and not just in the audience. He brought me to the As the World Turns gathering because he spent about a year on the show. And that was after I was an involved viewer for like 2 years. Wow, my brother got it rolling. As the World Turns, wow. So he took me to that. You know, and I got to eat with the cast and realize that, you know, they chew their food the same way as I do. Yeah, and he was amazing to me. He was larger than life to me. I'll tell you one thing though, speaking of music, when my mother was pregnant with me, and he told me this story a long time ago, he used to tell her to go over to the Victrola and stand there so that I could hear the Beatles. And he wanted me to be not only a boy, but a Beatles fan. And he only got half his wish. Because they didn't quite know, I don't know if they knew back then that fetuses can hear, but he was banking on it, and he was correct. And we were sitting at my parents' house in, it was Easter '85, watching TV together, and during a commercial, he turns to me, he goes, probably about 25 years old, he goes, "What's your first memory, your first life memory?" All right, I'll think about it. Okay, so Lincoln Avenue, that was the first house that I was born in. Okay, and he was asking me to describe his room. Okay, blue carpet, blue this, little, okay. What was on the desk? I explained everything in detail. I was getting it right. Because I remember sitting on his bed in the morning, singing along to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And then after I was finished, he goes, "How old do you think you were?" "I don't know, we moved out of there when I was 3. He goes, "You were 2. Okay, so I remember when I was 2 years old. But it was really the music that solidified my memory. And it had a huge impact on me, and that's why Sgt. Pepper is my favorite album. Let's see, he loved cats. He used to, my sister was talking about the sound effects with the dive bombing. He used to sit in my living room, and there was a basket of laundry. He would take rolled up socks and flip them over to my cat, Ivan, and he would just make the sound of like shh, and the cat would go like this, and he would go running like a child over and over again. He would just crack himself up. Let's see. Yeah, my sister brought up the near-death experience, and he explained that to me one time. And it was because I was telling him, I would always call him up whenever I thought that our Father was kind of coming through to me, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to believe that or not, but these strange things would happen. And I would call him up because he was the most grounded spiritual person I ever met. So he would tell me if I was reaching, but he never did. And that's when he finally told me about what he experienced that day as a kid. It kind of, we were on the same page about that kind of thing. And I would always call him up and tell him, I think something else happened. Well, ever since he passed away, I can write a book of all the weird things that have been going on, just like my sister. So, and I had this conversation with him before he went. I said, obviously without scaring me, if there's anything, any way that you can communicate, you know? So he said he would. Yeah, I mean, it's just, oh, talking about electronics, number 3 on my button in my car is Q104.3. I'm usually listening to my Spotify. One day, I was charging my phone, and I had the radio on, and I went to open the vent or something, do something other than put the radio on, and my finger hit number 3, and all of a sudden I hear Runaway by Bon Jovi. He's in the video. Just stuff like that. I never put that on. And I accidentally hit the button. If you stack those things up, I mean, can they all be coincidence? I don't know. But if anybody could get through, it would be him. And to mess with us and to say hi, and I'm still here, you know. It was a lot easier for me to accept his passing because of those conversations that we had. And I like to believe that he's on the other side rooting for me, doing what he can. And us, all of us, actually. Oh yeah, I was gonna mention his cat, Mike. He got his stage name from his cat, Mike. He named himself Michael Luciano because Luciano was his first name and his cat's name was Mike. As simple as that. So you forgot one name. Michael.
I did.
Yes.
There's so many different ones.
For little cat butts. What do you say about leaving his window open in the
He left
city?
his window open in his apartment and he said, I can just imagine all the cats
Oh, the cat's coming
coming
in
in
the
the
window.
window and fur little cat butts all over my pillow.
He was mischievous. You couldn't be in an elevator with him. Like I was in Alexander's one time with my mom and him, and he was driving her nuts because he would rise up on his toes and then go, and the whole car would shake. And my mother was freaking out. Just impish, just playful and impish, but never mean-spirited. But he always had to scotch somebody, you know. Margaret, God bless you. We had a thing for Paul Newman, and he was devastated when I didn't win Red Book Magazine's contest. It was a recipe contest. And he liked my submission, which was called Cool Ham Luke. And it was deviled eggs with ham in it. You had to use like the product, and the winner got to have lunch with Paul Newman. But when he met Paul Newman, I was the first person he called and told me about his experience. And anytime he was on TV or something, he would let me know so that I could watch it. He took me to see King Kong, 1976, with Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges. He took me to Star Wars when I was 10 years old when it came out, and that was the coolest thing. And we always watched Star Trek together. I was a big Spock fan because of him. Leonard Nimoy fan, and so we used to talk about him too. And yeah, we had all that in common. I couldn't attend Gordon Lightfoot one time. I had won tickets from the radio to see him at Carnegie Hall, and I think I couldn't find a sitter or something. So I gave the ticket to him, and he took his friend Wayne, who my sister mentioned earlier. Wayne Geist, he couldn't be here. He was his BFF from Rochester, and John Urshan. They should be mentioned too. Those were his brothers as well. But I'm glad that they got to go, because I don't think that they've got to do stuff like that very often. So it was clearly not meant for me, but them. And they enjoyed that memory for the rest of their lives. So yeah, I mean, the arts and my brother are like, you know, that's why it had to be here. This had to take place here. SUNY Purchase was one of his absolute favorite places on the planet. And all of his friends and fellow actors and were absolute brothers to him. No question. Many of them slept on our couch, came for dinner, and kind of felt like brothers by proxy to me. I was only 14 when you guys graduated, so it left a deep impression, very deep impression. But in his soul, though, he's a performer. He's a writer, a performer, an expresser. And I'm grateful that there's so much of him left behind in pictures and on film. And I kind of want to wrap this up with his favorite quote. And I don't know how this is going to sound, but he actually put this on Facebook with his initials under it.
Okay. We have another sister here. Mom insists she's her daughter. And my sister and I agree, she's our sister. She's been with my brother for as long as I can remember. And her name is Margaret, which I'm sure most of you know, the love of his life. And she would like to come up and say a few words now.
Watch the wires, for sure. If I fall, I'll break a bone.
Hi, everyone. You know, I just wanted to start out by mentioning that after Luciano passed, I had a vision, and it wasn't a dream because I wasn't sleeping, but it was a vision. And he was in a boat on a lake, on a motorboat, and you know the one where you do the driving from behind, and he was dressed like a king in a long gold gown with a gold crown. And the funniest thing about it was he was hell-bent on getting across this lake. He didn't look right, he didn't look left, he just was going, you know, and I don't know what it means, but I know I wasn't sleeping, and I know that I wouldn't dream that up, so because that wouldn't be my mind. But it was for whoever needs to know that I felt that something was happening and a transition for him. And today I wore gold because he wore gold in this vision. And whoever did the costume design for that vision got it spot on because he looked great. He looked beautiful. He did, really. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that for anyone who needs some validation or hopeful validation. But I just wanted to start, and I'm going to read because I do this James Joyce stream of consciousness stuff, so I don't want to be here till tomorrow doing this, so I just typed it here for it. I just wanted to start by sending my love and my heartfelt condolences to Luciano's mom, Mary. In what became the last few months of his life, he spoke to me about you always, emphasizing his love and appreciation for all you did in his life. He never understood the love of cleaning, but he didn't get that part. But he also knew the personal sacrifices that you made for him and your family. And you were always part of our daily conversations. Much love to you. Luciano's voice could fill a room without raising it. Warm, deep, unmistakable. Some said it's his voice that makes people listen, but those who know him best understand it isn't just the sound, it's the truth it carries, the humor, the humanity, the fierce intelligence offered with gentleness. His voice tells stories, soothes tempers, gives comfort, and makes ideas come alive. It was how he moves through the world, not just speaking, but actually reaching people. And then in the cool unraveling near the end, his voice was almost completely silenced. He tried to work around it, writing emails and texts instead of calling, raising an eyebrow to show amusement or concern, shrugging, touching his heart, and offering it as a sign of love. But as the silence grew, you could see it hurt him, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. His words had always been his gift, his bridge to others, and now the bridge was burning. For the many who loved him, it was a strange and aching grief to have Luciano still here and yet miss him all the same. But lovers learn to listen in new ways. I learned to read the language of his eyes, how they softened when he looked at me, how they held whole conversations when words were no longer possible. I memorized the curve of his half smiles, the erratic rhythm of his breath, the deliberate aching tenderness of a hand squeezing mine. I watched the careful mouthing of I love you, each syllable shaped with devotion and effort. In that quiet, I discovered something important, that even in silence, he still spoke with his presence, his gaze, his unwavering love, and I listened with my heart. But would his voice wait for his strength to return? I came to realize it would, but not as we were used to in this plane. Because death, though it silences the physical body, does not silence the soul. And in whatever takes place beyond this one, whatever plane lies beyond this one, he speaks again with sound, perhaps, and with the full expression of who he is, unbroken and unmuted. His voice there is made not just of words, but of everything he ever meant to say and everything we ever needed to hear. In that place, I know his laughter echoes again. Familiar, bright, full of life. His stories flow like rivers unbound, winding through time with warmth and wisdom. He sings not because he needs to be heard, but because he is whole, luminous, and free. I truly believe in the possibility of mysteries unfolding and magic appearing. I sincerely believe this, and I always look for the magic in every day. I think if we can be still enough and present enough, we will know and feel Luciano returning to us once again, in another form, not gone, just found again in unending abundance. Luciano is here, woven into the fabric of all things enduring, the breath of the universe, speaking to us still in the quiet language of love that transcends sound and time, one the soul remembers. So few words for an ocean of pain, but I love you, my Luciano. Thank you.
That's why I call her my sister. I also wanted to mention that while I was sitting there, I had my phone on my lap, not touching it. And up popped all these Bitmojis for no reason. This is what he does to me. He's still messing with me. What you doing? One of them says, what you doing? The other one says, ha, ha, ha. And on my Bitmojis, I'm wearing a crown that Margaret saw in her vision. There's another one that says, yep. Thanks, Gueri. He's still messing with me, I tell you. And he loved every minute of it. One name that I forgot, he had too many. When he was the firstborn grandchild on my mother's side, and you see a picture of him with my nana, our nana. She adored him, and she used to call him the king in Italian, Il Re, and he had that nickname forever. He showed up to Margaret with a crown. He did. That has meaning. He's the king. He's the king. Okay, yeah, and everybody's making me remember things I wanted to say, but I forgot, and I forgot again. Okay, next we have our Aunt Sue. She is the youngest of my mom's siblings. My mom is the oldest of six. She's the youngest of six. And they had a very special relationship, and Aunt Sue would like to share. Come on up. I'm leaving these Bitmojis up here because I want to see what else he does.
I'm coming.
Okay.
Get me a little water.
I need
Good morning, if it's still morning. I'm Susan Shirella Mays, better known as Aunt Sue, to my 15 nieces and nephews. I became an aunt at the age of 8.5, thanks to my oldest sister, Mary, getting married to Milo Guerriero, and bringing my first nephew, Luciano Guerri, into the world. Eventually, I became his babysitter. With the help of my mom, Gueri's Nana, my nickname for him was Goops. I have no idea why. In the years to follow, we argued a lot, mostly because he didn't have to obey me because I was too young. So I was not the boss of him. He then refused to call me Aunt Sue because I was a teenager and not his elder. While attending St. Anthony's Elementary School in West Harrison, known to its residents as Silver Lake, the class topic was Mary and baby Jesus. He raised his hand, and Sister, well, we don't really know her name, so we'll call her Sister Mary Kay. Sister Mary Kay called on him. He asked her, "Did Mary breastfeed Jesus?" This kid was ahead of his time. By the expressions on the students' faces, Sister Mary Kay could tell who knew what. As we got older, he had less interaction with me. Me being a teenager and him in school, establishing his group of friends and activities. As adults, we supported each other with our performing events. Him with his off-Broadway plays, one being the one-act play with his friend, Val Kilmer. And me singing in nightclubs, and with him attending my community theater musical performances. I have to admit, when he was in the audience, I was nervous. Because after all, he was the professional actor, not me. He was always kind and supportive when I asked him, how'd I do? Smart, kind, supportive, extremely gifted, and private. That's my goops. Till we meet again, Gary, I will love and cherish you always, especially our years of growing up together.
Okay. As you can tell, he was very well loved. Wait a minute. Let's see. I have one child, my son, and it turns out he is just like my brother in every way, and Mom agrees. He likes to scooch me too. That's Italian for needle. They are so much alike. I told people I gave birth to my brother. Chris don't like that. They're very much alike and they got along great. But at this time, I would like to introduce my sweet son, Christopher. He goes by Chris. To speak about his uncle.
Everyone hear me? This mic is a little low.
There's one over there.
Let's go up. Well, there's been a lot of great quotes from my Uncle Gueri shared over the last few days. I want to open with a quote that he once said to me. That was the quote. I'm going to presume that was a compliment when my mother said I was similar to him. When she mentioned her message or him when messing with the technology, it was at that exact moment that light started to go out. The timing, it was right when that was mentioned. So I thought I'd point that out. One thing I was tasked with was recounting my uncle's love of sports. It may seem trivial, but it was one of his great joys in life, absolutely worthy of mention on an occasion like this. My first memory with Uncle Gueri was going to a game at the old Yankee Stadium when I was a kid. We would meet up in the city somewhere and then ride over to the Bronx. Nothing bonded me and him like New York Yankees baseball. I'm so glad for the final few years we got to really start texting back and forth often, mostly about the Yankees. For some people, a team can actually transcend sports. It can be a tribe that provides a sense of belonging. It was very real. And the fact that he would share that with me is a gift that I don't know that I fully appreciated until he passed. So I still get the impulse to text him during games to this very day. Of course, a lot of the last few years was the two of us venting about our mutual frustration over the Yankees. His second to last ever text to me was Stroman's in mid-season form after the aforementioned Yankee pitcher got battered by the Giants on April 11th. He would sometimes complain about the Yankees to me as if I were in a position to remedy the team's struggles. Unfortunately, the Yankees did not draft me in 2017, so there was nothing I could do. I still get the urge to text, and that impulse has not gone away. He gave my mother and Aaron one last great Yankee memory with him on Friday, 2 days ago. We went to Yankee Stadium. We wore the old shirts he used to sell that said, "This is your brain," Yankee logo. "This is your brain on drugs," Mets logo. And we watched the Yankees beat the Cubs 11-0. So thank you, Uncle Gueri. I also bonded with him a lot over film. Me, a casual viewer, him, a tenured thespian. He gave me recommendations. Every year, at my mother's insistence, we would watch the movie Prancer at Christmas, cherishing his approximately 5 lines. I remember when he was a kid, he would chide me for liking Harrison Ford more than Clint Eastwood, which he wasn't right about everything. I took a lot of pride in showing off a photo of him there it is. That's good timing. That's from the 1991 film Johnny Suede, opposite this unknown aspiring actor named Brad Pitt. You'll see it cycle through. He also worked with names such as Samuel L. Jackson, Sandra Bullock, Cloris Leachman, Nick Nolte, Sam Elliott, Catherine Keener, Bon Jovi, and countless more. If you ever spoke to him about his acting career, you may have noticed that he never emphasized the prestige of working with stars. I have to brag about that for him because he never would have done it himself. Where was it? Instead, he recalled getting to know those stars as people, as human beings. I don't know if any of the people I just read are here. It'd be very cool, but they could probably attest to it. He saw beyond the superficial in celebrities, just as he did in his friends and family. The only exception to that was a severely slumping Yankees player who he'd have gladly banished to the moon forever. I texted him last year after Aaron and I were sitting in Washington Square Park in New York City, and we saw the actor B.J. Novak from The Office walk by. I texted him right away, and he told me a story of how in the 1980s he was sitting there and he met Susan Sarandon in that very same park and had a 2-hour conversation with her. He said he had tried to maneuver that into a date to no avail. Worth a shot. Growing up in California and Florida, I didn't spend nearly as much time with my uncle as I would have liked. but I do cherish the time together that we did get. Our last time seeing each other was in January 2024, and that is by far the most valuable to me of any time that I saw him. That was when he got to meet Aaron. The two of them were able to share with each other about their mutual passion for making films and their experience doing it. Having had that time together was a blessing in the truest, most profound sense. Because of that day, spending quality time with him and with her, I know he was able to know me in my complete self, which is with her. I'm infinitely grateful that we had that meeting together. I would defer beyond that to family members who have more time, more memories to share, but I love my Uncle Gueri and I miss him, and that's all I got.
Another thing that Chris has in common with my brother is they're both journalists, writers, authors. My son has a career in journalism right now, mainly online, and he also is a frequent guest on a small ESPN radio show in Florida, talking MLB. Chris, what did you do to this?
Pull it down, angle it down a little bit. Yeah.
So, yeah, he's got the writing talent from his uncle and my father, and speaking talent definitely from Uncle Gueri, definitely. So it's nice to see that fulfilled. And I know Gueri is so proud, because Gueri was a published writer also. So, okay, so now. One thing that, or more than one, that my brother absolutely loved were his nieces and nephews. And we have a couple of, well, both of his nieces here today. And Joanne, Emily, are you gonna? Joanne first, okay. So we are going to have Joanne, his niece, come and speak about her. Oh.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much to everyone for coming here today. Yeah, just thank you. And so, I wrote something, but I feel like I'm just going to go off script anyway. So I'll try to, stick to a general form. I'm not used to this, but yeah. So obviously, my first memories of my uncle were from my childhood. And the biggest thing that stuck out to me was how big he was, especially to a little girl like me. And I remember in my house, his head, I swear, would touch the top of the door frame. It was outrageous to me. I was like, how? I've seen pictures of him holding me as a baby, along with my siblings. And he's done so much for me and my siblings as well as for everyone here. That's why we're here. I'd see him every Christmas, and, he'd always get us gifts. And he would also, a big memory of him from my childhood is when he would take my sister and I out, along with Aunt Margaret, to get our nails done. And I swear it was once a month or something. It was regular. And, it was a little awkward for him to be a guy in the nail salon, but he would still come in anyway, and he'd make jokes about getting his nails done. Just a general, just like everyone said, he really messes with you. He really knows how to mess with you. And he would do that to me as well, me and my siblings. He'd be like, how old are you turning? And I was like, 7. He's like, 77? I remember that one. I made a joke about like, he just made a lot of jokes. Some of them feel a little childish to share, but he would make fun of my accent. He'd be like, what's the opposite of tea? I'd say coffee. He'd be like, coffee. Just messing with me in little ways like that. And I just thought it was the silliest thing. He definitely had a tremendous sense of humor. And that's one thing I've always loved about him. So let's see here. Yeah, he was always kind to me. Like he was definitely a gentle giant. And he had a big heart as well. So later in life, the more time passed, I'll just read the script. The more time passed, the more I learned about him and the deeper my understanding became. I learned he was an actor, and later I learned he was a writer and did many other things that were shared already. I learned about his journey through college, which gave me solace about my own journey, how first you start out with something and then you learn you want something else, and it's okay, So in other positions of service he held, it was already mentioned with 9/11. That's something I later learned about him. And he definitely, provided service to his family. Like he was always there. So I learned that he has strong morals and he's so selfless and humble that I was unaware of a lot of the good things he had done until I was an adult. And until I directly asked him. He's that, humble and, like it was mentioned, private as well. And I remember in around 2021, I was struggling and I had some phone conversations with him about family stuff and also career stuff. And I reached out to him and we had these, deep talks, which is like his favorite thing to do. And he never sugarcoated things, but he was very gentle about it. Yeah, he was very gentle. I'll always remember his voice. Sorry. And the biggest thing that I remember from him during that time, when I was overwhelmed with indecision and, a whole bunch of, hard stuff to go through, he said, you don't have to do anything. Like I felt like I had to do this, I had to do that. He said, you don't have to do anything. And every time I face that same indecision and struggle, I hear it in his voice. Like, I don't have to do anything, it's okay. And I visited him when he was in the hospital several times. I had to get the COVID test, which was always pleasant, but it was always worth it. And he always had a good head, like no matter how, bad it got towards the end of his life. So I like to say, like, a lesser man could not have handled what he went through in the end for as long as he did. He really fought to the end, and I never heard him complain about it. I mean, maybe he complained to other people here, but he always just wanted to share more with people and to educate people and just share life with them. I second everything that was said up here. He just really touched the lives of so many people, and just with his words. And he was so successful in his life as well. Just very humble about it. So I found a lot of comfort in his advice, and as a result, my understanding of our family and life in general just grew so much deeper because of his wisdom and his knowledge that he was willing to share with me. And I learned more about him as a result as well. Some of the hard things he faced. So, as funny as he is, he was also very mature, at least when it came to, his nieces, and taking that, that helpful role, he knew when to switch on and off. I learned through him that he knows several languages, and what acting is like. He helped me in the whole career thing when, by sharing that he also has many talents and that it's okay because it can lead to a lot of anxiety and indecision about it. But he shows that you can just tap into all of them. You can be successful with many things. So I'm just going to read the rest of it. He's one of the best, mature, funny, helpful, honest, smart, and creative men I'll ever know. He was failed so deeply by his circumstances. I think it was very tragic what happened to him, and he handled it with so much grace. Despite that, he loved and lived as if there was nothing wrong. He still wrote, he still talked on the phone, and he still served. It pains me to imagine what he must have been thinking, because, like I said, really hard circumstances. But as it was mentioned, it was a very small part of his life, and he had a very happy life filled with love and with people who love him. So I just wanted to end with every time I pay my rent, I'm reminded of his rent song that was also mentioned earlier, and that always sticks with me. I appreciate that there's a lot of footage of him and pictures of him left, and he will never be completely gone. And I think of him whenever I think of film and writing, and just really high quality writing too, and I feel him with me. And also whenever I'm overwhelmed with anything, I'm reminded that I don't have to do anything. So I just thank you all for coming. I'm sorry that was a little disjointed, but this has been hard, and really grateful that we're all here and I can learn even more about him through all of you. So thank you.
I forgot to mention Joanne and his niece Emily are my sister Marianne's daughters. I now have Miss Emily. Your turn to shine, baby.
My name is Emily. Luciano was my uncle. We always called him Uncle Gueri. I only learned later in my life that he took on so many different names, and it's been very difficult to face this in general, and sum up my uncle with mere words alone, but I gave it a shot. And this is the kind of thing that we all know he wanted, everybody getting together and talking about the good times. It's still strange that I can't just pick up the phone and send him a message and expect a response. I've always known how loved my uncle is, but over the last few months, I've realized just how many lives he's touched. And the sheer number of condolences our family received is disarming. It's incredible. It's so great to know that you all love my uncle as much as we do, and we always will, even if we have to wait to see him again. My Uncle Gueri played a big part in shaping who I am today. I also went to SUNY Purchase, graduated during the pandemic in 2020 with dual degrees in the arts, and I don't think that's the path I would have chosen without him. Just the courage to be exactly who I am, and he was always very, very proud. Always an unconditional source of love and support, and he encouraged me to be exactly who I am. He showed me courage in the face of adversity, patience in the toughest of times, and abundant love always. Be his niece meant consistent phone calls and messages full of love, even in his decline. It meant growing up pampered at nail salons on holidays, a tradition he started with me, and we were able to take along my younger sister when she was old enough to sit for a pedicure. Those are memories that my sister and I will treasure for the rest of our lives. He was always there for dessert, holidays. When him and my Aunt Margaret walked in through the door, we knew it was about to be present time part 2 and dessert, the best part of the night. To be his niece meant always having someone in your corner, someone advocating you even when you didn't know it. He'd advocate for me all the time, without even knowing. I had no idea. It meant having somebody brimming with endless pride at even your smallest life update or achievement. I would get random messages full of love you in all caps, XOXOX, bunch of heart emojis. Could always count on him. To be his niece meant conversing at a high intellectual level, but never feeling talked down to. He knew I was smart. I knew he was endlessly smart. I always hoped that meaning going to the same college meant I'd get a similar level of education. And to be his niece meant I had a role model who was smart, kind, and caring, all in a gentle giant. We've used those words already. But it's very true. He's someone who could have so easily been imposing, and yet he simply wasn't. And we'll all carry on with our lives, but we'll carry a piece of his spirit within us when we do certain things or say certain things and talk to other people. Whenever we cheer for the Yankees, whenever we look toward the future with hope in our hearts, for better days, whenever we sit around the table and share laughs and memories with each other, whenever we turn to each other with compassion or smile at a stupid joke, or whenever I treat myself and get my nails done, whenever I read a good book, or whenever I do my art, whenever I bite into dessert on Thanksgiving or Easter or Christmas, he'll be with me, and in that way, he'll always be around. And I want to close with, I found this on my shelf last night, one of his publications in Brooklyn Noir, a collection of short stories. His is in here, Eating Italian. And I was looking for a different copy. I thought I had my mother's copy with a different signature in the back towards his photo. But I realized I have my grandmother's copy with a handwritten dedication in front from when this was published in the early 2000s. And I think reading it would be a nice representation of her being here. It says, "Mom, you've watched me and hoped for years with me for my efforts to break through. And here it finally is, a real start. Thank you for your belief in me and for your love. Love you always, Gueri."
And now I can't see. All right. You boys want to say something? Margaret's 2 sons are here. And my brother's known them since they were little boys. And I always say he loved them with a father's heart, even though he wasn't their father. That's how he felt about them. So proud of both of them. Okay, so are there any of the family members that would like to speak? Or share? Nobody? Okay, now, well, I want to hear the stories from the friends. Oh, wait, first, before the friend, well, he is a friend. Mr. Topo, is he here? Did you want to come say something? Mr. Topo was my brother's English teacher in high school. Remained very, very close. And there's a little story about that. I had Mr. Topo also in 11th grade. He was an English teacher, and he gave my class a spelling test, and I got a 99. My strength has always been spelling. I represented my elementary school in the countywide spelling bee, and I got a 99, and I thought, I spelled everything right. I went to Mr. Topo, and I said, why did you get, he said this one letter it was supposed to be an O, and I put A, and vice versa. And I said, well, that's what I wrote. I wrote the right one. And he said, well, nobody's perfect. And then years ago, I get a phone call from my brother, and he said, someone wants to talk to you. It's Mr. Topo. And Mr. Topo gave me my 100. Thank you for that, Mr. Topo.
Except me. Anyway.
There are tissues down there.
Yeah. I have a few notes. And let me tell you, that Gary was like a son to me. Period. And now I'll go on. Some say infinitum. When I first met Gary, a shy young man in my English class, I soon learned this boy, actually a big boy, was more than interested in literature. He was passionate in a search for all the meaning of the what am I doing? Leave that alone.
That's my brother.
Anyway, the meaning of the implications of the literature provides. I'm hoarse. No donkey. This warmed my heart, not only then, but now. The future attending me bond of lasting friendship and love. I lost sight of Gary as he went off to college football and SUNY Purchase. Serendipitously, we were reconciled some years later after 9/11. We met for lunch in New York where he was working for the city. And the bond that seemed forever. I'm really moved. When you have a student that's unique and impressive, a teacher, as they say in Yiddish, crowds. The feedback is not so much the gratification it gives you, but the growth in that boy or girl. And Gary did grow serendipitously. He was unique, both in terms of his passion and in terms of his altruism. He gave birth to a little bit inside of me that I will cherish and have cherished. I intended to read script, but but that doesn't belie the heart. I will miss it. I do miss it. He was unique. I said that, and I'm redundant. Let me read a couple of poems which he posted the night before he died. Actually, at the end, we couldn't converse. So he would put online to me what his thoughts were, and I would phone him and leave a message on my phone. Freedom is a Habit by Carl Sundberg. Freedom is a habit, and the coat warm. Some have it, some wear it. Some never know it. Freedom is cheap, or again, as a garment it's costly. Men pay their lives for it, rather than not have it. Freedom is baffling. Men having it often know not what they have. What does this mean? Is it a riddle? Yes, it is the first of all in the pattern of the primers of riddles. To be free is so-so. You can and you can't. Walkers on their freedom only by never walking away their freedom. Runners too have freedom, unless they overrun. Eaters have their freedom, the freedom to eat. And drinkers overdrink their freedom, find freedom drinking. Edna St. Vincent Millay, he posted me these the night before he died. My candle burns at both ends. It will not last the night. But my foes, and oh, my friends, it gives a lovely light. And this is for those who loved him, particularly Margaret. Shall I compare these to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling months of May, and summer's leaves hath all too short a day. Sometimes too hot the even, I'm really moved. I love you, Gary. Few students have impressed me so. Words, idle words, I know not what they mean. If you will. I'm very moved. I don't want to cry. That would be exhibition. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when an alteration finds, or bends with a remover to remove. Oh no, it is an effervescent mark that looks on tempest and is ever shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark was once unknown. Although his height be taken, love's not time's fool. The rosy lips and cheeks within his ten bending sickles compass come. Love alters not within his brief hours and weeks. Bared is each to the end of doom. If this be error, or upon me proved, I never read, or no man ever loved. Thank you for putting up with my novel statements. Generally, I'm glib. But in deference to Gary, I will not be glib. Amen.
Any other family members? Okay. Springtime. He's still messing with my phone, by the way. Okay, friends. I think we're ready. I want to hear some good juicy stories. Who wants to go first? All right, Keith. Steve Barber. I have to apologize to you guys, Steve. I used to hang out with all of you here many times with my brother, and you all aged and I didn't, so I may not recognize you. But that's it. Yeah, get up here.
We kid. Get on the piece of that before he's ordered.
I'm youth and you're in.
It's funny you said that about all the names.
Uh-huh.
You always wanted me to call him Tony. I always called him Tony.
Tony.
I never,
Yeah.
coat on, otherwise someone may be judging me that I'm care enough. Class it up. Right? Many thanks to Laura and Marianne for putting this together. How do you boil down a 40-year friendship into 5-10 minutes? It's tough. That's why I'm glad that you allow me to pick up the rest of the time. My introduction to Luch was memorable. I was just in my first year of Purchase, 26-year-old freshman, a full learner. And Luch was a year ahead of me. I was hanging out at the pub, campus pub, South, and Luch was working there as a bouncer, I guess, or maybe he wasn't working there. I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe he was just hanging out. And he always had that enforcer mentality and put out that bouncer vibe, regardless of what he was doing. Big part of his persona. Don't think at that time we had shared a word between us. I noticed him around campus. How could you not? He was big as a house. Still in college football shape. You didn't want to mess with him. It was one big dude. Well, that night at the campus pub, a fight breaks out when a couple of Port Chester local lowlifes showed up to start some trouble. And as was my tendency, I mean, I was in pretty good shape too, only a couple of years out of the military, army shape. I tried to launch myself right into the middle of it. Just as one of these punks was coming at me and I was prepared to defend myself, Luch grabs me from behind, pins my hands to my side as a couple of punches glance off my kisser. No big deal, because my sister punched harder than this guy did. And also back then I had a mug that could take a punch. See, actually in a small country town where I come from, getting punched in the face was looked upon as getting a little work done. But, you know, when the dust cleared, Luch apologized, but from the gleam in his eye, I don't think he was too sorry about it. I'm sure he had a big laugh over it later. He enjoyed bringing this event up a little too much over the years for a good old time laugh, twisting the facts to make his role seem more favorable, his ego more inflatable, if that was possible. I'm here now, Luch, this is my version of it. You grabbed me from behind, you let some guy punch me in the face. But after that night, we quickly had a good connection. He got me, I got him, and over the next 40 years plus, we grew to be closest of pals. He became my most trusted confidant. Yeah, we had some troubles along the way. Any good friendship, especially one that spans many years, they got to have a few bumps if it's going to grow. Especially with two guys as imperfect as we were. Our mutual level of respect, appreciation, gave us a way to work through the bullshit, to forgive each other for our many shortcomings, and to keep our friendship intact. We've always stayed very much in touch, speaking on the phone almost daily throughout the years, until recently when his failing 9/11 lungs made that no longer possible. Luch had a great knack for listening, especially when I was struggling with something. He allowed me to talk it out, and most times I came up with my own solution. He gave advice only when I asked for it. He was far less willing to share whatever it was that was ailing him. Private and protective, he'd rather put on the facade of strength than expose any kind of weakness. It wasn't weakness, Luch. Just being human, brother. He never leaned on me nearly as much as I leaned on him. I think he was more comfortable playing the role of a big brother, embracing the grit, being that big supportive guy. In truth, I came to depend on him for that. Just an example of what kind of guy he was, and it's already been talked about, was how he went to that hospital and he held those little babies. I think most of them were AIDS infected. That kind of service marks what kind of man he was. If you imagine a man of his size gently cradling a tiny underdeveloped infant in those large mitts of his. I think probably in those moments he was able to let go of his own bullshit and be the closest to who he truly was. just a big, warm-hearted, sensitive guy. Now, I can't just pull just 1 or 2 moments of all those years. So much happened during the time we were carefree dudes through our slowing middle years right up to now aging geezers. He was there for so many big events. Even when his body betrayed him and he became physically compromised, he was always there in spirit. We shared in the joys of family, music, sports, Saturday morning wrestling, the 1980s golden age of Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, the Sheik, Jake the Snake. I bought into it. I swore it was real. Luch said it wasn't, but you know Luch, always the conspiracy theorist. Once again, pal, I get the last word. The love between the Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth, that shit was real, brother. We had a routine of shooting pool on Sunday nights in the West Village, stopping off for a slice of John's Pizza on Bleecker, bantering back and forth about who was the best player. That would be me. Who was the biggest cheat? That would be him. Truth is, both of us sucked. We played in a softball league in Central Park, and a team made up of mostly guys like Andrew, Dave, Paul, Whoa, Louie, Tim, Tony, Emmett, mostly guys from his Purchase acting company, and the remarkable Mike Maitland, who's somewhere heavenly right now, still gracefully chasing down fly balls with the best of them. Greatest of times. Greatest of times. Lou shared dinners at my apartment in Soho, almost nightly, when he was briefly on Sullivan in between jobs. He showed his appreciation by criticizing me. Ready to go all John Gotti on me for straining my pasta in the kitchen sink. I mean, where else do you pour steaming hot spaghetti into a pasta strainer, Luch? The toilet? It made no sense. He constantly bring it up through the years as if I had violated some fine cuisine etiquette. Luciano, the king of New York City's greasiest food dives. Ate at places that cockroaches took a pass on. What a fucking tool. But I loved him. I loved him dearly. We shared like-minded political values up until a few years ago when our similarities shifted into hardcore disagreements. We agreed it was best to leave politics out of conversations. Probably the most special times of all, I'm going to say this right now about that t-shirt. He did that for Yankee fans. All right? Yeah, he was a Yankee fan. Okay. Probably, you're not going to ruin this. Probably the most special time for us all was sharing in the run of the 1986 championship Mets. Well, Luch was a hardcore Yankee fan. He was a sports fan first and a New York City loyalist, unlike most Yankee fans. I bartended for a guy who had season tickets on the third baseline at Shea Stadium. We watched the Mets clinch the pennant from those box seats. After the game, the fans were allowed to walk out onto the field and out through the center field where they opened up the fences. Real childhood dreams. For a couple of guys who loved baseball, standing on the pitcher mound, scooping up a handful of dirt, rubbing her palms together, staring in at home plate. It was incredible. We were there for the Mets' 6th game comeback against the Red Sox, the Bill Buckner game, maybe the greatest Met game ever put on full display of why they're called the Amazings. Also present for the Game 7 World Series clincher the next night. A few months later, we were celebrating Phil Simms, Carl Banks, Carson, LT, Bavaro, Joe Morris, and the rest of Bill Parcells' Giants when they beat the Broncos for their first Super Bowl win. What a year for New York. And we experienced those moments together. As artists, Luch was loving and he was supportive, always believing in me, especially during the times when I struggled to do so myself. Luch never missed a theater production I was in, traveling an hour outside of the city to a little playhouse in Croton Falls, most of the time with Margaret and Tobe, where I did the bulk of my work. He read every creative things I ever put a pen to, offering guidance and insight how to simplify and enrich my writing. We shared, we shared, we shared, we shared. In sadness, grief, and in the celebrations of friends who left us too soon. A couple weeks after Luch passed, he paid me a visit. For a dream I had. I know, it sounds all bullshit. Woo, 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 woo. But as Margaret can contest, it isn't. I've had these visitations before with friends who are now on the other side. It's happened with me a number of times with my father, a late father. And not so soon after passing. In the dream, Luch had his health in full movement, but he was also blind. He had no sight. He sat up on a big white horse, looking bold, looking gallant. There was no words spoken between us. I just remember him riding the horse around me with this incredible grace, and galloping away. All I could think about in that moment was how much I've underestimated him through the years. I felt, and I still feel, regret over that. I'm sorry, buddy. What was the dream about? I don't know. I think he'd evolved somewhere beyond sight. A horse is a highly spirited animal. When a rider fully connects to him, they become one. So when he rode away, he did so fully in spirit, perhaps letting me know that he was okay, and that when my time will come, I'll be okay too. I know about when he was electrocuted. He told that story a number of times. And, in that moment when he saw the white light on the other side, he was given that insight of passing over. I believe that must have given him some solace in his final moments. Rest peacefully, my friend. You and Mikey Maitland, you keep that bench warm for me. I'll be joining you guys a lot sooner than later. Thank you.
The friends. I love these stories. All right, who wants to go up next? Before I forget, there's a table back there. There's a book where you can put memories for my mom to read later, and there are cards that you can take with you. This is Doug Fox. We just met.
Yeah, we just, make sure we get this thing working better. Well, I have a slightly unique thing with my relationship to Luch. First off, is I always knew him as Luch.
I know, that's.
Okay, so, because the first time I met him was before was our acting company 6, which was the class that Luch was part of, and went to school at Purchase for. And what happened is that I had tried to get into Purchase 3 or 4 years before that, right after I got out of high school, 74, and didn't get in. My audition sucked. So I spent years, I got a 2-year degree in electronics. I did everything that made my family happy. And, but I always intended using my, going to a SUNY school, I could then slip into Purchase. And I really wanted to go into directing. And they stopped the course in directing when it came around to that time. So I was like, oh God, what am I gonna do now? And I said, well, maybe I'll go back and try acting again. And what I did was I went to the community, continuing education, which were programs that the school also had for outside students. And I took an acting course here, right over in the science building just across the way. And in what was supposedly the planetarium, which was a round room, which had horrible acoustics. But one of the other students there was Luch. And he was taking the course also thinking that he was going to try to get into Purchase as an acting student after going to Rochester. And we kind of got along pretty well starting out. We'd start doing scenes together and stuff like that. We had pretty much the same kind of attitude about how the world worked. And I really liked him a lot. He was really kind and was enjoyable. And eventually, made it clear to each other, we're just doing this so we can see if we can get an audition, do the audition for Purchase. And so we started sharing notes and stuff like that, and suggestions and stuff like that. And between that and me choosing somebody else to give me acting coaching, we auditioned, got through the first layer, and I remember my favorite experience with him was going down to the old Times Square before Disney and having our audition there in a very hot studio, I think just off of 45th Street or whatever. And he was there. There was only one person I knew in the entire troupe that was there. I'm sure some of the guys here probably maybe remember me or probably definitely remember Luch. And we were able to get through that whole process. He was very helpful to me in keeping myself focused and grounded. And from that, we both got in. We, did scenes with Waltz in class, and some of my best and most best experiences with Luch and the acting, including the time that I drank a glass of water filled with cigarette, which caused an entire horrible outbreak in the place. I almost, again, yeah, whatever. Got into the scene pretty quickly, and it wasn't intense. But in general, it was. Well, come on. How would you react to that? Whatever. But Luch is a memory that I have of Purchase in many different ways. Everything to him, coming over, impromptu keg parties that we created, and when we were living in the apartments, and just the acceptance he had of just about everybody, and his insight into people, and like telling me like, oh, that person's going to be this, that person's going to be that, and he'd usually be right about it. And but his love of acting, his love of his friends, and I'm glad to hopefully consider myself one of his friends, because we always had. I mean, even in the weird things of when he was doing writings years later, he calls me up and he starts grilling me on scientific information about this, that. Is this possible? If I found a character, does this, can you do that? And no, it doesn't work that way. And that's the kind of thing where he respected everybody that he talked to, that he was with, and he saw in whatever his, whatever he felt was his opinion about something, he also still listened to the other person to find out if he really had it right. And that's what I remember, and that's what I will always cherish about him. And he was a really great scene partner. That's all.
Am I lose this?
How you doing? Signore, signorina, buonasera, come stai? Chapters. He had a lot of chapters, it sounds like, we knew that. We knew that from school. Luch was this big bear of a man. I walked into school. I'm this little guy from the South Bronx, and I looked up at him and was just like, wow, he's a monster, And it turns out he was a football player. So he had this whole life prior to us meeting him, me and Matt and all of us. He had this whole life that was very different from the one that we became accustomed to having together. Guys like Keith, who went to
who came here, went to Purchase, came here to Purchase at age 26. So there was an inherent kind of like looking up to them kind of thing. And with Luch in particular, because he had a very paternal kind of feeling about how things should be. You know, I did things that a way that I did them, and he looked at me kind of funny, kind of like, that's interesting. Okay, wow. Wow, that's how he does that. Okay. And we would let it go, and he would let it go and never judge me. And he never judged me. And I learned that little tiny thing from him, to not judge, kind of let people be who they are and let things kind of flow. That picture that we're in together, he's got his fucking middle finger out at me. And he would always do things like that, which you guys have touched on, right? That he was always messing around and doing these things and, like, you know, trying to get a rise out of people. He tried to get a rise out of our teacher at school, our acting teacher. This is a guy who studied with, you know, Lee Strasberg group theater, and he didn't give a hoot. He went right after him, questioned him, challenged him, but there was an extraordinary gift in that, because we learned to challenge ourselves in a different way, maybe hear things a little bit differently, you know, though at the time, it seemed a little bit out of line. And, you know, we always gave him a little bit of a hard time. I got my little bullet notes here. Gave him a hard time about that. I mean, you know, to see what happened as a result of his work at 9/11, after having seen this big guy running bases, playing baseball, hitting, you know, I mean, he was an athlete. He was really a big, wonderful athlete. Him and class used to spend a lot of time together. And you can imagine, like, again, 135 pounds, southbound, these two guys seemed like giants to me. And I learned a lot from both of them, in particular Luch, because of the way that he just kind of carried himself. Sometimes you teach people just by doing what you do. You know, you don't need to kind of like instruct them, listen, this is how I do it, and this is what I have to do, and how you do it. He just kind of like went about his business, and I respected that. You know, I respected that in him, and I was glad that he was there. Smart, intelligent, combative, wouldn't let us come see him, and it wouldn't be a complete day if we didn't say that. He wouldn't let us come see him because he didn't want us to see him in that state of whatever it was that he was going through. Though I'd seen it multiple times, because my mother and my father and other friends that worked that died and have had illnesses that they didn't want to share with you because they wanted you to see them in their best light. We just wanted to see him. We just wanted to see him. Some of his other friends like Bubba and Sam and these all are here, and Keith, of course. Our chapter was a small window into what seems to me to have been an extraordinary life. The life before we met him at Purchase, where he was a football player and older brother, and then later to then Purchase. And Purchase seemed like a snapshot, because there's so many other things that have happened with him after that. His writing, his ability to engage with people, working for the city. I mean, those are all chapters which make up an extraordinary book, if you will, of a lifetime lived. You know, he did the best that he could, given the tools that he was given. And I mentioned that again because he was always very combative with us about things, and he always questioned us and he questioned things, but there was something really inherently good about that, because we learned a lot about him, we learned a lot about each other and about ourselves because of him having been in our lives. It's sad that he's gone, but it is celebratory that we're all here, and you know, that I remember that look. I just like, you know, there's a look. He was playing with my ear one time. There's a photo of me turning around and wanting to fight him. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's Glenda Callender, who was another fellow student of ours. she captured this photo in this moment when he was messing with my ear in an acting class. And, you know, he kept things heavy, he kept things light, he kept things, you know, moving, and, you know, we'll miss him. But he had an extraordinary life, and that should be celebrated, and that should be just embraced, because, man, wow. Wow, wow, wow. All right.
Oh, Louis Ramos. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. Oh my God. Rusty Wilson.
Oh, my goodness. Well, first of all, thank everybody for your thoughts, your heartfelt words about our dear friend Luch. I call him Luch because I too am part of that purchase. Didn't know him when he was in high school or in Rochester. So for me, I was introduced to him as Luciano Guerriero. That is the way he announced himself. So I've got a couple of things that I'd like to toss in there. First of all, the first time I ever saw Luch, I didn't know him. We were at the auditions in New York City. Oh, it's moving. I'm not going to touch it. Okay. We were at the auditions, and I was alone. I came up from Virginia to do this, flew up by myself. There was no parental support. It was like I was just in New York City going, okay, you know. And I was struck when we went into the room together, somebody was playing the piano. And I didn't know who it was, but he was a large fellow. And he was having the ball, just playing the piano. All of us were being put at ease because there was something going on in the room. And it wasn't about us. And so that was my first impression of him before I ever knew him. I've got another quick little story. His first